Mafia boss smelled her and froze. "Don't let her leave." Then he turned off all the security cam. The tall, narrow buildings seemed to lean toward each other, whispering secrets of 1,000 years. Here, every corner hid danger, every alley held a story, and every face told half-truths. Ilara stepped lightly over the wet cobblestones, pulling her cloak tighter around her shoulders. Her eyes scanned the streets, sharp and cautious. She had come here for answers, answers about her family, about a past that whispered of curses and forgotten promises. But she had not expected the city to feel alive, almost as if it were watching her. And it was. A low hum vibrated through the air. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the storm brewing somewhere in the hills. It was something else. A presence. Ilara shivered, though she did not know why. Her heart quickened. Something was near. From the shadows of a grand mansion at the end of the street, a figure emerged, tall, broad-shouldered. His movements were smooth, almost liquid, yet contained a silent authority that demanded attention. The street lamps caught the glint of his dark eyes. There was a strange sharpness to him, as if the world itself bent slightly in his presence. Varen, the Mafia boss. The man whose name alone made the underworld whisper in fear. He smelled her before he saw her, though not in any ordinary sense. There was something in the air, a faint trace of her essence, her energy, that made him freeze for a moment as though time itself had hesitated. "Who?" he started, then stopped. His gaze locked on her. It was not just curiosity, it was something far more primal, something he had not felt in years. His fingers twitched toward the wall, almost subconsciously, as if ready to command his guards. But none were visible and none dared enter this street without his call. Ilara felt it too, the pull of him. Not fear exactly, but something darker, heavier. She took a step back. The hairs on the back of her neck rose. She wanted to run. The instinct to flee was strong, but it was tangled with curiosity. He was dangerous, yet impossible to ignore. "Who are you?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the tremor in her chest. Varen's lips curved in a faint, unreadable smile. "That depends on who is asking." His voice was low, smooth, like dark velvet sliding across steel. It carried authority, command, and the hint of something secretive, dangerous, magnetic. Ilara kept her hands hidden under the folds of her cloak. "I am someone looking for answers," she said. "Nothing to do with your world." He tilted his head, studying her as if he could see through the layers of clothing, through the walls she had built around herself. "The world has a way of finding people who want to stay hidden," he said. His eyes narrowed slightly. "And sometimes it finds those who cannot leave." Ilara's heart skipped. She stiffened. How did he know that? She had just stepped onto this street, and yet he spoke as if he had been waiting, as if he had always known she would come. Varen turned slowly and motioned with a subtle hand. The massive doors of the mansion creaked open. "Come," he said. "Inside you are safer than out here." "Safer?" Ilara repeated, suspicion rising in her chest. "From what? You?" A flicker of amusement danced across his face. "From the city," he said simply. "From itself." The mansion loomed above her as she followed him. Candles flickered along the walls, casting long shadows that danced like spirits. The air smelled of polished wood, old books, and something else she couldn't place. A faint, intoxicating trace of smoke and roses. Varen moved through the halls with the grace of someone born to command every inch of the space. Ilara felt her pulse quicken. There was danger in every step, but also a strange sense of inevitability, like the mansion itself wanted her here. "Why me?" she asked suddenly, stopping in the center of the grand hall. "Why notice me at all?" He paused and looked at her. The candlelight reflected in his eyes, and for a moment she thought she saw centuries of secrets, grief, and desire all at once. "Because you smell of things forgotten," he said. "Of power, of blood, of something I cannot touch. You are dangerous, and yet," he hesitated, "I cannot let you go." Ilara's breath caught. There was no threat in his tone, yet every word pressed against her chest like the weight of the fog outside. Her instincts screamed at her to leave, but some invisible chain kept her rooted. "Why can't I leave?" she whispered, almost to herself. Varen stepped closer. The shadows around him seemed to deepen. He did not reach for her, but his presence filled the space, pressing in like a tide. "Because I will not allow it," he said softly. "Not tonight. Not while you are here." Alara swallowed, the sound loud in the quiet hall. "And if I refuse?" He smiled faintly, and it was not a smile of warmth. It was something older, something that spoke of storms held back and promises unkept. "Then you would leave," he said, "and I would follow." She felt a chill run down her spine. He wasn't threatening her with violence. No, it was something deeper, something that cut through reason and danced on the edges of fear and fascination. She wanted to run. She wanted to stay. She could not decide which feeling was stronger. The mansion itself seemed alive. The walls whispered. The candles flickered as though breathing. Somewhere deep in the distance, a clock struck midnight, though no clock was visible. Time felt different here. He was different here. And she was beginning to understand that she had stepped into something far beyond a mere encounter. "I don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "Why me? Why now?" Varen tilted his head, and his dark gaze softened, if only slightly. "Because you are the first in a long time to walk in unafraid, the first to look at the shadows and not run, and because," he paused, and for a heartbeat the air seemed to hold its breath, "because you smell of freedom I thought I would never see again." Alara shivered. She did not know what to say. She did not know if she should speak at all. There was something in him, a darkness that pulled at her, a danger that promised both ruin and revelation. A sudden sound echoed through the hall, a whisper, a movement too quick to see. Varen's head snapped toward the source, and instinctively he moved to block her view. For a moment she thought she saw a shadow flicker in the corner. "Stay behind me," he said quietly, almost to himself. "Don't move." Alara obeyed, her heart hammering. There was trust in her obedience, though she did not know why she felt it. The mansion had secrets, yes, but Varen, he was a force of secrets himself. And in this moment she realized that she had already crossed a line she could not uncross. He walked toward the corner, silent and precise, and the shadow vanished before she could see more. Turning back to her, Varen's gaze softened, almost painfully. "It will not find you," he said. "Not while I am here." Alara's throat went dry. There was no warmth in the words, only certainty, a certainty that frightened and fascinated her in equal measure. She wanted to flee, yet every part of her ached to stay. "Why care?" she asked. Her voice was a whisper. "Because," he said slowly, "some things are worth stopping for. Some people are not meant to be alone in the dark." For the first time, she felt the weight of her own solitude. And in the shadowed hall, with candlelight flickering against the stone walls, she realized she was not alone. Not tonight. Not while he stood there, a silent storm in human form, watching her with eyes that saw too much. A strange, almost electric silence settled over the room. Time slowed. Outside, the fog thickened. The city slept unaware of the tension held in the mansion's heart. Alara wanted to step back. She wanted to turn and run into the misty streets, and yet she could not move. Varen took a step closer, just enough that the air between them seemed to pulse. "You cannot leave," he said again, not as a threat, not as a command, but as a truth. Her heart ached with the impossibility of escape. Not because he stopped her, but because some part of her now wished she would never leave. And as the mansion held them in shadow and silence, a single thought took root in her mind. But by the storm in his eyes, and she didn't want to escape. The doors of the mansion creaked softly, as though sighing, sealing them into a night that promised danger, desire, and a story neither could yet imagine. And then he spoke, low, certain, impossible to ignore. Inside the mansion, silence weighed down the halls. Candlelight flickered against the walls, casting shadows that seemed alive, whispering secrets that the world outside could not hear. Alara paced slowly through the grand hall, her eyes tracing the high arches and dark corners. Every step she took echoed like a warning. She felt trapped, yet strangely drawn to the mansion's quiet power. She did not understand why, but every instinct screamed that leaving now might be impossible, not just tonight but forever. Varen followed her silently, not hovering but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his presence. He did not speak unless necessary, and when he did, his words carried weight, command, and an unspoken tension that twisted the air around them. "Elara," he finally said, breaking the silence. His voice was low, smooth, and almost hypnotic. "You need to understand something." She stopped, turning to face him. Her cloak rustled softly. "Understand what? The world you see, it is not the only world," he said. His eyes glimmered in the candlelight. "This city, my empire, what you call danger, it is only the surface. Beneath it lies power older than kings, older than empires. And you are part of it." Elara frowned. "I don't understand. I am nobody. I came here looking for answers about my family, nothing else." He studied her, his gaze sharp yet strangely soft at the edges. "Nobody," he repeated. "You do not know what you carry. You do not know the mark your family left behind. You are stronger than you believe, stronger than anyone alive here." Her pulse quickened. What do you mean?" He shook his head slowly, like a storm contained within a man. "Later," he said. "For now you must stay. The city will not let you go easily. And I cannot let you leave." Alara's chest tightened. She had come seeking answers, not to be imprisoned by a man whose presence was both terrifying and magnetic. And yet something in his words, the certainty, the power behind them, made her hesitate. He was dangerous. She knew that, but danger had never felt so compelling. "You speak in riddles," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Why should I trust you?" Varen's expression softened. "Because," he said, "if you walk out that door tonight, you may never return. There are forces here, Elara, forces that hunt what you carry, and they do not forgive." Her eyes widened. "Hunt me? What are you talking about?" He moved closer but did not touch her. Just his presence pressed against her senses like a storm. "You will see soon enough," he said. "But understand this, there is a bond now between us. Whether you like it or not, whether you resist or accept it, the threads have begun to tie you to this place, and to me." Elara felt a shiver run down her spine. She wanted to protest, to run, but the words caught in her throat. She felt as though some invisible chain had wrapped itself around her heart, pulling her closer, tethering her to the mansion and to the man who stood silently, commanding the shadows. They moved through the halls together, the silence broken only by the occasional flicker of candlelight. Every door, every shadow, seemed to whisper secrets. Elara felt a strange curiosity, mixed with fear. Something was waiting for her here, something that she could not yet understand. Varen led her into a smaller chamber, dimly lit, filled with old books, ancient artifacts, and shelves of glass vials that glimmered with mysterious liquids. The air smelled faintly of herbs and smoke. "This is my sanctuary," he said softly. "Here I am not the man the city fears. Here I am only," he paused, searching for the right word, "someone who has lived too long in darkness." Alara's gaze swept over the room. She noticed a book lying open on a desk, its pages filled with strange symbols and writings she could not comprehend. "What is all this?" she asked. "Knowledge," he said simply. "Of the past, of power, of curses, and of those who would use them." He looked at her with an intensity that made her stomach twist. "You have more connection to these things than you realize. Your blood, your family, they were tied to forces older than any kingdom. And now you are here. You cannot hide from it." Elara sank into a chair, feeling suddenly small in the vast chamber. Her fingers traced the edge of the table as if holding onto something tangible could anchor her to the real world. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. "I don't know if I want to be part of all this." Varen knelt in front of her, placing his hands on the table, leaning forward. His gaze was unyielding. "You have no choice, not really. You were always meant to be here, even if you did not know it." But I can guide you, protect you if you allow it. She looked into his eyes and saw something she had never expected, a vulnerability hidden beneath his power, a shadow of longing and pain. She realized that he was not just a man of the city's dark streets. He was a man trapped in his own storm, chained by a curse, by choices, by secrets too heavy to bear alone. "Protect me," she asked softly. "From what?" Varen's gaze darkened and the room seemed to shrink around them. "From those who would take what is yours, from forces that would use your power for their own gain, from the curse that follows me and now follows you." Alara's heart pounded. The word curse echoed in her mind. She had always felt that something unseen haunted her family, that something ancient and relentless had marked their lives. Could it be true? Could she be tied to this man, to this city, to a darkness she did not yet understand? A sudden sound outside the chamber made them both freeze, a low, deliberate knock at the mansion door. Varen's hand went to the hilt of a dagger at his belt, his posture shifting instantly from calm authority to predator in waiting. Alara instinctively took a step back, her body tense. "Who is it?" she whispered. Varen did not answer immediately. He crept toward the door, silent as a shadow, and peered through the small window set in the heavy wood. His lips pressed into a thin line. Then without turning he spoke. "Trouble has arrived. They know you are here." Alara's stomach dropped. "Who?" Varen turned to face her, his expression unreadable, a storm hidden behind calm eyes. "Enemies, not human, not entirely. And they will not leave until they take what is yours." Fear surged through her, sharp and unrelenting, but beneath it a strange thrill pulsed. Danger had never felt so vivid, so immediate, so impossible to resist. And Varen stood before her like the eye of the storm, unshaken, commanding, protective. "Stay close," he ordered, his voice low but firm. "No matter what happens, you do not leave this room. Understand?" Alara nodded, her throat tight. She wanted to ask why he cared, why he had stepped into her life with such intensity, but she did not dare. There was no time. The knock came again, louder this time, echoing through the halls. The shadows seemed to twist and stretch toward the door, as if drawn to the sound. Varen moved to the center of the room, standing between her and the door. He drew a small, ornate dagger from his belt, the metal glinting in the candlelight. His stance was calm, practiced, deadly. Alara's heart raced. She realized with a mix of fear and awe that this man, this dangerous, magnetic, unpredictable man, was willing to face anything for her. And something deep within her stirred, a mixture of longing and trust she did not fully understand. The door burst open, and a shadowy figure slipped inside. The room plunged into chaos, the candle flames flickering violently. Alara clutched the edge of the table, heart hammering, unable to look away as Varen moved with precision, blocking, striking, commanding the intruder with silent authority. The shadow retreated, disappearing as quickly as it had appeared, leaving a faint whisper of smoke and cold air behind. Varen turned to her, his breathing steady despite the attack. His eyes were dark, almost dangerous, but softened as they met hers. "You see," he said quietly, "the world will not leave you be. But neither will I." Alara sank into her chair, trembling, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The mansion was no longer just a refuge. It was a battlefield, a fortress, a place where danger and desire collided. And in that moment she realized something she could not deny. She was bound to him, to this place, to a story that was just beginning. Varen's voice, soft and commanding, broke the silence once more. "Sleep now if you can. Tomorrow we face more than shadows. Tomorrow you learn the truth of who you are." Alara nodded weakly, her mind racing with questions, fear, and an impossible curiosity. She knew she could not leave. She knew that staying meant danger, uncertainty, and a storm she could not yet imagine. And yet, somewhere deep inside, she also knew that leaving was no longer an option. The candlelight flickered, shadows twisted, and the mansion held them both in a silence that was anything but empty. Outside, the city whispered, the fog thickened, and the night stretched long. Inside, two hearts beat in a rhythm neither fully understood, tied by unseen chains, bound by a storm that had only just begun. And for the first time, Elara felt it, the pull of something larger than herself, something dangerous, thrilling, and impossible to resist. The night was far from over, and the world outside was closing in. The dawn came slowly over the city, a pale light struggling to pierce the heavy fog. Inside the mansion, the air was still thick with the memory of the previous night, the shadows, the whispers, and the danger that had slipped away only for now. Elara sat by the window of her chamber, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the gray morning streets. Her mind was a whirlwind of questions. Who had come for her last night? Why was she tied to this man, Varen, whose presence haunted her even in sleep? And most of all, what was the truth about her family, the past she had never known? The door creaked open and Varen stepped inside, silent as a shadow. His dark eyes softened briefly when they met hers, but the weight of responsibility and danger lingered in his expression. "You're awake," he said simply. "I didn't sleep much," she admitted, her voice quiet, almost fragile. "I keep thinking about last night." He nodded. "You should. It was only the beginning." He stepped closer, and Elara felt the pull of his presence like a current. "There are things you must understand. Things about yourself, about what you carry, and about me." She looked at him, hesitant. "I feel like I don't know anything anymore. I don't even know who I am." Varen's gaze softened, though the shadows in his eyes never left. "You are more than you realize, Elara. Stronger than you know, and you are not alone. That is why I cannot let you face this alone." Elara's heart fluttered at the words, though she tried to hide it. She didn't know if it was comfort or fear that stirred inside her. She had felt danger and she had felt protection, and the two were tied together in a way that confused her. "Teach me, then," she whispered. "Teach me what I need to know." Varen inclined his head. "If you wish it," he said, "but understand truths are never gentle. They will challenge you, they may frighten you, they may change you." Elara swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the blanket. "I am ready," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. He extended a hand, not commanding, not threatening, just offering. She took it, tentative, and felt a spark, almost like electricity, leap between them. Her skin tingled, her heart raced, but she did not pull away. Together they moved to a smaller chamber, one filled with old tomes and dusty scrolls. Varen pulled a large book from a shelf, its cover worn with age. "This belonged to your ancestors," he said. "It is more than history, it is guidance and warning." Elara's fingers traced the symbols on the cover. They seemed to pulse with a faint light, as if alive. "Why was this hidden from me?" she asked. "Because you were not ready," Varen replied. "The blood you carry, it is powerful, dangerous, and not everyone can handle what it brings." Elara opened the book carefully. The pages were filled with strange symbols, drawings of creatures she did not recognize, and writings in a language that felt ancient, almost like it spoke directly to her mind. She felt a pull, as if the pages were calling her. "What is this?" she asked. Varen stepped closer. "It is the truth of your family, the legacy you were born into, a power that has slept for generations, waiting for one who could awaken it." Her heart pounded. "And me? I am supposed to awaken it." "Yes," he said simply, "but awakening it is not simple. It will test you. Fear, anger, desire, they will all rise. You will see things you never imagined, and you will have to decide what kind of person you want to be." Elara felt a mix of fear and fascination. For so long, she had felt ordinary, powerless, like she was at the mercy of the world. But now she realized she had a choice, a dangerous, frightening choice. As she studied the pages, a strange energy began to stir in the room. The air felt heavy, charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. Varen noticed it too. His eyes narrowed and he moved toward her, protective. "You feel it," he said. "The power is waking. Do not be afraid. It is part of you and part of what makes you strong." Elara closed her eyes, focusing on the pulse of energy within her. It was unfamiliar, frightening, yet intoxicating. She felt her mind stretching, opening to visions of the past, ancestors, battles, and sacrifices. She saw shadows moving, creatures hiding in corners of the world she had never known, and she saw herself standing among them, powerful and unafraid. When she opened her eyes, she found Varen watching her closely. His expression was unreadable, but there was something in his eyes she had not seen before, a mixture of awe, respect, and fear. "You are stronger than I thought," he said quietly, "and perhaps more dangerous than even I can control." Alara's pulse quickened at the words. "Control?" she asked, a tremor in her voice. "Are you afraid of me?" He shook his head. "Not afraid," he said, "but aware. Aware of what this world can take from you and what it can take from me. We are tied together now in ways neither of us can ignore." She looked at him, realizing the truth of his words. Their bond was growing stronger, forged in danger and curiosity, in fear and desire. She did not fully understand it, but she could not deny it. Before she could speak, a sudden noise echoed from the hallway, a soft, deliberate sound, like someone walking lightly on the stone floors. Varen stiffened instantly, moving to position himself between her and the door. "They have found us," he said, his voice low, controlled. "Not all are human and not all are friendly." Alara's breath caught. "Again, last night I thought it was over." "It never ends," Varen said. "Not while the blood you carry exists, not while the forces tied to it remain." Her stomach twisted. She had not expected this. She had thought the mansion would be a refuge, a place to learn, to grow. But it was not safe. And yet, despite the danger, a part of her wanted to stay. She wanted to face it with him, to learn, to fight, to understand. The figure appeared at the doorway, a shadow, quick and deliberate, its form almost human, yet distorted, unnatural. Varen moved with lightning speed, intercepting it, and the air around them seemed to shimmer with energy. Alara's heart raced as she watched. She had never seen anything like this. The shadow lunged, and Varen struck with precision, his movements almost fluid, a dance of power and control. The shadow dissipated in a swirl of darkness, leaving a faint scent of smoke and cold air behind. Varen turned to her, his eyes intense. "Do you understand now?" he asked. "This is the world you are stepping into, and it will not forgive weakness." Alara swallowed, her hands trembling slightly. I understand, I think." He gave a faint, almost approving nod. "Good. Fear is natural, but fear can be a teacher if you let it." She felt a surge of something deep inside, a mixture of fear, courage, and an unexpected thrill. She realized that the danger, the power, the shadows, they were all part of her now, part of the path she could not escape. Varen moved closer, and the distance between them seemed charged with energy. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will see more, you will learn more, and you will have to make choices, choices that will define not only your power but your heart." Alara's pulse quickened. "Choices? What kind of choices?" He paused, his dark eyes softening for a fleeting moment. "Choices of trust, choices of courage, choices of who you want to be and who you allow yourself to become, and choices about me." Her chest tightened at the words. She did not understand fully, but she felt the truth of them deep in her bones. Their bond was no longer just about safety or curiosity. It was about trust, about hearts, about something neither of them could yet name. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, and the candle flames flickered violently. Shadows twisted along the walls, stretching like living things. Alara felt a chill run down her spine. "Something is coming," Varen said quietly, his hand brushing hers briefly, grounding her. "And we must be ready, together." She nodded, her mind racing with fear and anticipation. "Together," she repeated. Outside, the fog thickened, curling around the mansion like a living creature. Inside, the shadows shifted, and the mansion held secrets that had waited centuries to awaken. Alara realized that her life had changed forever. The path ahead was dangerous, unknown, and filled with trials. And yet, for the first time, she felt a strange exhilaration, because she was not alone. Varen's presence, dark and commanding, protective and unpredictable, was a constant beside her. And though she did not fully understand it yet, she knew one truth that was undeniable: she could not turn back. The mansion, the shadows, the power stirring inside her, it all waited, and so did he. As the night approached once more, the city slept unaware of the storm brewing within the mansion. And within that storm, two hearts beat in rhythm, tied together by fate, blood, and the promise of a future neither could yet imagine. Ilara felt it deep in her soul. The world outside was dangerous, the shadows relentless, and the forces seeking her unstoppable. But inside the mansion, with Varen beside her, she felt something else too: strength, courage, and a bond that could face anything. And somewhere deep in the darkness, the past whispered, promising trials that would test everything she had learned, everything she was, and everything she might become. The storm had only just begun. The night was alive with whispers. A cold wind swept through the mansion, rattling the tall windows and carrying the scent of fog and rain. Outside, the city lay silent, unaware of the storm brewing within the mansion's walls. Shadows moved like living things, curling along the hallways, and the candle flames flickered as if alive, warning or perhaps inviting. Ilara stood at the center of the grand hall, her hands trembling slightly, the ancient book of her ancestors open before her. The words on the pages glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. She could feel the energy rising within her, wild, untamed, calling to her very soul. Varen stepped silently beside her, tall and commanding, yet something softer lingered in his gaze. The dark storm around him, the power, the danger, the aura of authority, was tempered now by something more fragile, by trust, by a bond that had grown over weeks of fear, lessons, and shared moments of vulnerability. "Are you ready?" he asked quietly. His voice, low and calm, carried the weight of centuries, yet it trembled slightly with concern. Ilara swallowed. "I think I have to be," she said, her fingers tracing the glowing symbols. "I don't know if I can, but I have to try." Varen nodded, stepping closer. "You are not alone. Whatever happens, I will face it with you." She looked into his eyes, searching for the truth behind his words, and found it there, an unwavering promise. A silent vow that even in the face of darkness, he would not falter. The shadows in the room deepened. The candle flames danced wildly, throwing long, twisting shapes across the walls. Ilara could feel the power surging inside her, the energy of her ancestors, the force that had waited generations to awaken. Fear and exhilaration tangled inside her. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Then let's begin," she said. Varen stepped back, giving her space, his eyes never leaving hers. The air seemed to thrum, alive with anticipation. Ilara raised her hands over the glowing pages, focusing on the energy that pulsed through her. At first, it was chaotic, wild, impossible to control. Shadows twisted around her like snakes, curling toward the light she tried to create. "Breathe," Varen said softly, his voice a lifeline in the storm. "Control it, do not fight it, let it flow through you." She closed her eyes and drew in a slow, steady breath. The energy resisted, twisted, sought to break free, but she let it pulse through her, acknowledging its power without fear. Slowly, she felt a rhythm form, a harmony between herself and the force she had inherited. The shadows recoiled slightly, as if sensing that she was no longer prey but a wielder of power. Varen stepped closer, extending his hand. "Trust yourself," he said. "Trust us." Ilara reached for his hand, and the connection sparked. Together, they focused on the energy, drawing it into a single point in the center of the room. The air shimmered, the walls vibrating with the force. The mansion itself seemed to hold its breath. And then the shadows struck. From the corners of the hall, figures emerged, dark, twisted forms that moved with unnatural grace. They were remnants of the curse that had bound Varen, creatures born of darkness, hungry for the power Ilara carried. Varen stepped in front of her instinctively, dagger in hand. Do not let them touch you, he commanded, his voice iron. Not now, not ever. Alara felt fear, sharp and real, but it did not overwhelm her. She felt the energy inside her respond, shaping itself, forming a shield of light and power around her. The shadows struck, but the force pushed them back, bending, twisting, retreating before the light she now commanded. You're doing it, Varen said, his voice low with awe. You're stronger than I imagined. She opened her eyes, the glow of her power illuminating the room. The shadows hissed, recoiling from the brilliance, but they did not retreat fully. They were persistent, relentless, testing her resolve. Varen moved beside her, matching his movements with hers, guiding her through the struggle. Together they became a single force, a balance of light and darkness, strength and focus. Focus on me, he said. Not the shadows, not the fear, only me. Alara obeyed. She fixed her gaze on him, letting the connection deepen. The power within her responded, sharper, clearer, more controlled. The shadows shrieked, twisting into shapes that were almost human, almost monstrous, but they could not penetrate the bond she shared with Varen. Then with a surge of energy she channeled it through him, and together they unleashed a wave of light that swept across the room. The shadows vanished, leaving only whispers and the faint echo of cold air. The hall was silent. The candles flickered once, then steadied. The air smelled of rain and earth and the faint, sweet trace of something ancient. Alara sank to her knees, exhausted but exhilarated. She looked up at Varen, her eyes wide. We did it. He knelt beside her, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. Yes, he said softly. You did it, you are extraordinary. Her chest rose and fell as she caught her breath. I couldn't have done it without you, she whispered. He shook his head. No, you did this yourself. I only guided you. You faced the shadows. You embraced your power. You made the choice. Alara's fingers trembled as she closed the ancient book. For the first time, she felt the weight of her own strength, her own courage. And for the first time, she felt a clarity she had never known. Varen studied her quietly, his gaze soft but intense. There is more to come, he said. The curse may be lifted, but the world, the forces that hunt us, they will not stop. You must be ready. Alara nodded, determination settling in her chest. I will be ready, she said firmly. With you, he hesitated, then placed a hand on hers. With me, he asked quietly, almost as if testing the truth of the bond. She met his gaze steadily. Yes, she said. Whatever comes, we face it together. For a moment the mansion was quiet. The storm outside had passed, leaving only the soft patter of rain against the windows. Inside, two hearts beat in rhythm, bound by trust, courage, and something deeper, a connection forged in shadows and strengthened in light. Varen's expression softened, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly. You've changed everything, he said, almost to himself. Not just your power, but everything I believed about myself, about the world, about what is possible. Alara smiled faintly, tired but radiant. And you've changed too, she said. You've shown me I don't have to face it alone. He looked at her, a shadow of a smile touching his lips. Perhaps that is the greatest power of all, he said quietly. Trust, and the courage to care even when the world is cruel. They sat together in silence for a long moment, the mansion around them still and peaceful, as if holding its breath in awe of the bond they had forged. The danger had not vanished completely, and the world outside remained unpredictable and harsh, but inside this room, in this moment, they had won something rare. A soft sound drew their attention, a whisper from the hall, faint but distinct. Varen rose instantly, alert, and Alara stood beside him. Is it another shadow? She asked, tense. He shook his head slowly. No, he said. It is a warning, not from them but from what is left behind. There are threads we cannot cut, paths we cannot ignore. But we face them together. Alara nodded, feeling the truth in his words. She had stepped into this world without knowing what awaited her. Now she understood that her power, her courage, and her heart were part of something larger, a force that would shape the future, not just for her, but for the man beside her, and perhaps for the world they had only begun to understand. Varen reached for her hand again, holding it gently. You've done what few could. You've embraced your legacy, your strength, and even the fear. You've faced the shadows, and you have survived. Alara's fingers curled around his. We survived, she said softly. Together. He nodded, a rare softness in his eyes. Together, he repeated. The night slowly faded, giving way to the first light of dawn. The city beyond the mansion remained unaware of the battles fought in shadows and light, of the power awakened and controlled, of the bond forged between two souls in the heart of darkness. And as the sun's first rays touched the highest towers, Alara felt a sense of peace she had never known. She had faced the unknown, the danger, the darkness, and she had not only survived, she had triumphed. Varen watched her, silent and steady, the storm within him quieted, at least for now. The world may still fear us, he murmured, but I fear nothing as long as you are here. Alara smiled faintly, the tension of the night slowly melting. And I fear nothing as long as you are beside me, she said. Together they stood in the grand hall, the shadows now retreating, the mansion at peace. The journey was far from over, the forces outside still restless, but they had found something stronger than fear or darkness. They had found trust, courage, and a bond that would face whatever came next together. The storm had passed, but in its wake something far more powerful remained, a promise forged in shadows and light that neither time nor darkness could break. And the world, unseen and unknowing, waited.